to mute myself.
Okay, everybody, I'm going to call this meeting to order, and I'll ask anybody joining or any participants that are not giving a report or speaking to just mute if you could while we go with the proceedings. And then when it's your turn to present or speak, you can unmute and we will let you know. Okay, good evening, everybody. I'm Sarah Kirby-Young, Chair of the PNE Board, and welcome to the Board of Directors meeting for Monday, June the 12th. I'm very happy to have everybody here. I do want to start this meeting in a good way by acknowledging that we are here and working on the unceded and ancestral unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples, for which we are eternally grateful and continue to learn from. I also do want to point out a number of things before we get started and into the formal part of the meeting. And in terms of housekeeping, the speakers list is now closed as per the procedures that are posted on the PNE's website. We do have 4 items on this evening's agenda, with a total of 3 speakers who have signed up to those respective items. And as chair, I will call the first and last name when it is your turn to speak for the registered speakers. A reminder that each speaker will have a maximum of 5 minutes to share your thoughts with the board. We do have a timer that's located on the screen because we're virtual tonight. And so when your 5 minutes are up, you will hear that timer sound, and that's an indicator to conclude and wrap up your comments. Please note that the board may ask you questions to gain a greater understanding of the points that you are bringing forward, or to clarify any of the points that you have raised. And those same questions and answers do have a combined time limit of 5 minutes also. So each item on the agenda tonight will start with a report from the PNE staff, and the board of directors may have questions for staff as well, either after the staff report, after speakers, or potentially both. A reminder to everybody we ask and request everyone follow the code of conduct that is posted and available on the PNE website. And that includes speaking and presenting any materials in a manner that is respectful of all persons, using courteous or parliamentary language, speaking directly to matters under consideration by the board to keep our time together focused tonight. And finally, I do want to let everybody know that this meeting is being live streamed on the PNE's YouTube channel and is also being recorded for the purpose of the minutes. Okay, with all of that out of the way, thank you, everybody, and that we'll move on to the formal meeting. First item we have is the adoption of the agenda, which has been posted and circulated to directors. If there are no comments otherwise, I'm looking for a mover and seconder.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. All in favor? Seeing none opposed. Item number 2 is adoption of the public portion minutes from the Board of Directors meeting of December 1st, 2022. Looking to see if there are any errors or omissions, and if not, mover and seconder. Moved and seconded. Thank you. All in favor?
Excuse me, we didn't get to see the minutes.
Sorry, I'm gonna ask staff if they can confirm if those minutes are posted and available to the public as part of the package.
Get posted and are made public available to the public after they have been accepted and adopted by the board. So they will get posted after this meeting.
Okay, which is standard practice typically, that they're done after they're adopted. Okay, so just thank you for the question, and those will be posted and available after. Okay, so just confirming all in favor of the minutes. I didn't see anybody opposed. Okay, great, that passes. That brings us on to the heart of this evening's agenda, which are staff reports to the Board of Directors tonight. We have 4 items on this evening's agenda. The first one is item 3.1, which is the 2023 Community Program Update. And I'll turn this one over to staff to introduce the item.
Thank you, Sarah. Karen is going to take us through that presentation.
I'll just wait till we get to the right. Thank you very much. Welcome, public, neighbors, and board of directors. Today, I'm going to give you an overview of the community relations programs that we have relaunched in 2023 to support our core priority of rebuilding and expanding the relationship within the neighborhood and within the community. Next slide, please. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the new and the returning programs that we've launched this year, the June through December community calendar, and our open houses that are planned. Next slide, please. First topic is the new and returning programs. If you want to keep scrolling forward. So over the years, the PNE has had an extensive ticket donation program, of which this year we expanded to include a youth accessibility program in conjunction with our new partner, TD Bank. So we're focused on youth aged 13 to 18 and working with a series of community groups that work with and collaborate with at-risk youth. We're providing access to the PNE Fair, Winter Fair. We're doing a series of skills training and employment development. Next slide, please. In addition to the new ticket donation program, we've also expanded our neighborhood appreciation events, with our first one being in April with the Easter egg hunt. We are planning a music event in the summer for our neighbors. We will return with our Halloween event that we've done in the past, the Pumpkin Promenade. And we're working on an event ticket access program expanded to include all client events. What this is we give away a series of tickets to community groups to access a series of family and concert programming. This year, for example, we gave away to 75 different organizations tickets to the Jurassic World Live program. Next slide, please. Returning program, we're back and fully launched with our Casey's Kids ticket donation program. We've expanded our ticket donation program, and these are tickets that are used by other community groups to do fundraising and program enhancement for their programs. We have launched Community Day back at Playland. This is an event that will be happen in July, where we give $10 from every ticket sold to the Community Grant Fund. We're back with our community events, including the Terry Fox Run and Community Skate Days. And we've also launched our neighborhood ticket program with the neighborhood party at Playland. We have a neighborhood fair ticket program and the PNE Fair Access Pass for neighbors during the fair so that they have regular access to their normal walking routes throughout the day. Next slide, please. Our June through December community calendar is full and robust. Next slide. In June, we have this coming Wednesday, we have our neighborhood party at Playland. In July, we have Community Day at Playland, and we also have our community ticket collection program for fair running. In August, we continue with the collection of tickets for the fair, and we also have our community corner running at the fair. And then in the summer, we'll also be doing a summer music event. We're looking at the end of July, early August. Next slide, please. In September, as I mentioned, we're back running the Terry Fox Run. We will continue with our community advisory group that we meet every 2 months. In October, Pumpkin Promenade. And in November, we will have our next open house. Neighborhood ticket collection for the Winter Fair will occur. And we will also have in November our next community advisory group meeting. December, we will wrap up the year with a series of community skate days over and above our Winter Fair ticket program for the neighbors. Next slide, please. We have implemented from April 1 through the end of March a quarterly open house format. We ran our first one, our first quarter being April through June, second quarter July through September, third quarter October through December, and our fourth quarter January through March. Next slide, please. We held our first open house on May 16th with where we talked about the amphitheater and launch coaster update. We gave a summary of the 2023 events, the amphitheater and forum programming, as well as a community update on the programs and events and initiatives that you have just seen. Next slide, please. Some of the outcomes that we received from the open house was a request for an update on the daylighted stream. This has been actioned, and we have coordinated with the City of Vancouver Parks Board and Engineering to come in at the November 1st open house. We have a request to ask our neighbors for what topics they would like to be covered at the open house. We will be putting out a call 8 weeks in advance of the November 1st meeting for those topics. A request for more information on what can be done about traffic congestion, neighborhood parking, and community policing. The PNE is currently engaging with TransLink, City of Vancouver Community Policing to discuss possible solutions and report back at the November open house, and potentially look at possible speakers from one of those representatives. We've also had a request for more one-on-one or small group conversations with the PNE. Originally, our plan was to have 4 individual open house large format. However, there was been lots of conversations for the ability to do drop-in small round table type conversations. So we are diversifying the format, with May and November being the full large open house format. And then in Q2 and Q4, we will do a smaller group format where we're going to be including during the fair a community corner at the PNE Fair, where small groups can come in to have conversations with different leaders and community groups that participate at the PNE Fair, and have one-on-one dialogues. We'll also be looking to modify the community open houses moving forward where appropriate. Next slide, please. Some of the outcomes, the request to not hold the open house in the forum. The status PNE has booked the Hastings room for November 1st. However, we will ensure, and there is a upcoming question from the community as to why we chose the forum, but there will be times that we do have to use the forum based on space availability and or the number of people for the open house, which was the original plan for May 16th when we had an increased number who registered, but a very low turnout for our participation. We'll also ensure that there's better sound and screen equipment at the open house. We also received feedback that some of the community members feel that there has not been enough consultation in the amphitheater redevelopment. And the outcome from that is that we will provide a summary of amphitheater redevelopment consultation at the update sessions, the next public board meeting, which we will be seeing in a later date because it was a question that came up. And we will include an overview of in the upcoming community newsletter to ensure that we receive and send the information in multiple formats. The last outcome was a request for open house materials to be posted online in advance of the meeting. And the status is the PNE will post the open house presentations and handouts online 5 business days prior to the open house. Next slide, please. Our Q2 open house formats will be running through the fair from the 19th to the September 14th, where we will have an activation zone at the fair where people can come in and drop in and learn out about everything from the amphitheater and launch coaster to community groups will be represented, such as Japanese Canadians. We'll be talking about their interpretive center. We will have an overview of community initiatives, and we will also do a poll of the community to find out what are some of the other topics that they would like to have potentially for one-on-one conversations. Next slide, please. Our Q3 open house will be November 1st. We will be sending out the public call in advance. Our primary topics for this particular one will be parking and traffic control presented by an external spokesperson, and daylighting of the stream presented by this City of Vancouver Engineering and Parks Board team member. Next slide, please. Oh, that's the end of that report. Would you like me to go through and then do questions?
Yeah, I think this is a good opportunity to pause here and see if there are any questions from the directors to this report on 3.1 on the community program update. Lots of information in there. Just doing a check online on my screen here, and I'm not seeing any. Just want to take that opportunity. Oh, Shelley, would you like to provide additional comment?
Thanks. I just really want to thank the PNE team and our community relations team. A lot of work and effort has gone into rebuilding and resurrecting a lot of very important community programs that both support our neighborhood in general, but also go further than that to support specialized groups within marginalized groups within that neighborhood and in the surrounding public to give them access to a lot of what we're doing. And so again, I really want to thank Rebecca, Karen, and the team for all the incredibly good work that they've been doing on behalf of community relations in managing the rebuild of this in 2023.
Thank you, Shelley. I would second that. And that ongoing dialogue and work with the community is so very important. And I'm glad that we've got such a focus on it and dedicated resources towards it. Okay, I'm just going to keep us moving in the interest of time onto our next item, which is item 3.2, the Hastings Park Arborist Report and the gardening update. Looks like we have a Fido in the background there. Just a reminder to everybody to mute if you can. But if we'll move on to the update for the Arborist Report at this point.
Thank you, Sarah. That is my canine. Hopefully he stays. I'm here to report the Hastings Park Arborist report update since the last December 1st review at the public board meeting. I also want to note that this topic came in as a question, so it is being answered in 2 parts. This is specific to the Arborist report that was presented in last December. And then I will also be providing a more detailed overview of plan and strategy as it relates to the community question. Next slide, please. So in the December 2022 presentation to the board resulting around the August 2022 Arborist report, what has been completed to date is the 42 dead trees identified in the report that were identified as unsafe have all been safely removed, and a replanting strategy will follow. An architectural report of the sanctuary currently underway. I am presenting the answer to the strategy for replanting in the community follow-up question that came from the community. Next slide, please. Some of the other Hastings Park Sanctuary projects, we've been aerating, servicing the ponds have been replaced in the for the aeration. Irrigation has been repaired and reestablished to the east grounds. The pond was stocked by fisheries in April of 2023, and we have went to design on a new pollinator garden designed for the northwest corner of the sanctuary. Next slide, please. In Momiji Gardens, in the February-March snowstorms had an impact. We had fallen trees and stumps from the snowstorms have been safely removed and processed. They're naturally composting in the sanctuary. Debris has been placed temporarily along Dogwood Lane before pieces are relocated to sanctuary to be naturalized. Next slide. Hastings Park, a few projects in general that have been done in Italian Gardens where the repairs have been made to the expansion joints of the fountain. Beddings have been changed over around the fountain. I will give more information on that in regards to the invasive plant species coming from a question from the community. Pressure washing has been done throughout. And other projects, we've done thatching, aerating, and reseeding in Central Park. In the Coliseum, we've done exterior painting and hedge trimming. And in Playland, we've updated 3 ride gardens, and the launch coaster landscape is in planning with regular meetings happening with our consultants on that. Next slide, please. And with that, I'll finish on the Hastings Park update. There is more information to follow in regards to the community questions coming up. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. Thanks so much, Karen. I know that the greening aspect of the park is an important one, and it's always really heartbreaking when you lose trees, but attempt to replant them and try to regain the canopy back. Obviously, it takes a bit of time with some of the new ones. Are there any questions from directors on this item? Paul, I see you have a hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and thanks for the update, Karen. Just for my edification, in terms of the trees and our inventory, what do we maintain in terms of data on the tree inventory in the park?
Yeah, that's a great question, Paul. I do have a summary slide in regards to work that we are currently doing. We are working with the City of Vancouver Arborist along with the PNE Arborist, are putting together a full inventory of the trees on the site so that as we design our replanting strategy, it can be based on the inventory along with certain things like new climate parameters of what is more natural to BC now based on new climates, but there's more detail to come in that in the community questions down below.
Okay, thanks, Karen, appreciate that.
Okay, Paul, thank you. And then not seeing any other questions. We do have one registered speaker for this evening, which is Linda Young. And just confirming that we have Linda on the line.
Sorry, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay.
When you're ready, go ahead, and you have 5 minutes to share your thoughts with the board.
Okay. Some of this might be answered in the community questions part, but I will just go ahead with my questions then. So hi, my name is Linda Young, and I'm happy to have this opportunity to speak tonight. Just to be clear, I am on the board of directors of the Hastings Park Conservancy. I was also a teacher for over 20 years at Dr. A.R. Lord Elementary, which is across the street from Hastings Community Center. Excuse me. Through my role in the HBC and as a teacher, in collaboration with the PNE, Northwest Wildlife Preservation Society, and Indigenous Knowledge Keepers, I have organized environmental and cultural programs in the sanctuary for local school children and for the community. And those experiences are very life enriching for everyone involved. The sanctuary is an incredibly beautiful and important green space, and it's an ecosystem that gives life to so much in a small space. We love it and want to support its continued health. We are interested in knowing more about the plans for the planting and upkeep of the environment and the sustainability of its ecosystem, and how we can work together with the PNE to care for and learn from this unique and beautiful place. So tonight I have some questions about the Arborist report. And my first question is about clarifying what will be covered in the architectural report. And it sounds like it may be an audit of all the trees and plants that are in the sanctuary. And we would love to see something like that. We'd love to see, an inventory, an audit of everything that is there. And also, if it looks at future planting and other plans that will support the ecosystem there. And we're just wondering when is expected to be finished and made public. So that's around the architectural report. We also have some questions around invasive species, such as Daphne, that need to be removed in the sanctuary. And we know there were fewer gardeners during COVID, and maybe the numbers have increased, but removal of invasive species in parks and community spaces is often a way community groups can give back to a park in a meaningful way and help out the environment as well. So the members of the Hastings Park Conservancy would really like to have the opportunity to collaborate with the PNE and work on a project to remove invasive species. Some of our members have helped remove blackberries at New Brighton Park, which was organized by a community group, Nature Vancouver. And we would love to have that opportunity and work with the PNE on something like that. So we're asking you to please consider collaborating with us and set up a project for the removal of invasive species in the park. And we're hoping we could maybe set up a date to discuss that. I also see in the report that aerators have been replaced, but we are still very concerned about the low levels of water in the pond and wondering how the water levels and water quality in the ponds is going to be resolved. And I'm just wondering, are there plans to direct water from the amphitheater or to resolve this issue during the daylighting project of the stream, and maybe through the Rain City strategy or the One Water strategy? And it would be so great to have those ponds full and functioning in a healthy way. So that's my last question, the comment, is about the pollinator garden, which sounds wonderful. And we would all love to know more about that. And we also see that as an opportunity for us as a community group and maybe other groups to be involved with the PNE in a collaborative way around the teachings of a pollinator garden, the benefits of a pollinator garden. And I'm just wondering if there'll be identification signs or what are the plans for community engagement in that area. So to repeat my questions, and I don't know,
30 seconds left.
Clarify what will be covered in the architectural report, and please consider collaborating with us to set up a project for the removal of invasive plants in the park. And how is the low levels of the pond being resolved? And are there plans to direct water from other sources? And what are the plans for the pollinator garden and any way that community can also be involved in that? Because we would appreciate having that time and place to collaborate with the PNE.
Okay, that's 5 minutes.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you so much, Linda. You used that time well and packed in a lot of specific points, so I appreciate that. I recall from my time on the park board, we did a lot of invasive species collaborative removal initiatives over at Crowley Park and others, including you mentioned New Brighton, and it was always great to see community coming together to do that. But and I know staff are going to take this away, but I'll just see if there's staff want to provide any initial comments now before they take it away for sort of more thoughtful consideration.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Linda. If you mind, Linda, I will reserve the question around the invasive species, the replanting strategy to the community question, because I actually go in detail with detailed slides to those two particular questions. And if you've got follow-up questions, I can answer them offline or at another time for sure, if I don't give you the detail that you have, that you're requesting. In regards to your gardener question, are we back to full staff? We're actually ahead by 2 as we were pre-COVID. So we were at 11 pre-COVID and we are now at 13 since COVID has. So we have restructured the team to put more dedication to the maintenance and the care of the site overall. So there's a lot of a lot of work and strategy going on to that particular area. We actually already have a meeting on the books with the Hastings Conservancy and starting to talk about collaboration on a couple different projects, and I can definitely add this to the agenda for that. And if it's not at that meeting, then at a future meeting, because we do have a member from the Hastings Conservancy on our community advisory group, but there are a series of projects that we do want to continue to move forward for sure. So I'm going to come back to you on a date for the setup of that, because we actually have a couple different projects that we are working in mind as it relates to different school programs and different guided tours through the sanctuary and through our cultural gardens that we're hoping to align to and work with the Conservancy and a couple other different groups that have expressed interest in that. So we do have plans for increased collaboration on that. The invasive species, I will, as I mentioned, talk to you in regards to at another level. In regards to the lower level, I am going to put this one on as we may have to come back unless one of my peers has a different answer to it, with the exception of, does the amphitheater have any strategies built in? One of the strategies that we have been working on is making sure that the amphitheater is, and you'll hear more about it in this next section, but the roof itself, the way it's been designed, will actually take all the rainwater and take it back into the ground to replenish it and long-term feed the daylighted stream. So are we building a strategy and have we built to design to replace water and to increase levels? Yes, we have with the amphitheater, and we'll continue to work on projects to do that. The pollinator garden, we're probably about 2 months ahead. We're just in the initial design phase of it. But I believe once we have that first round of designs set out, one of the programs we're re-onboarding this year that we did in the past was neighborhood focus groups, were very dedicated topics. And I see that this could be one of those dedicated topics where we bring a group of like-minded, interested people in specific topics. And I can see the pollinator garden and other potential grounds conversations that we can bring into those focus groups to have input. And then we can also work within the internal team to say what can and cannot be done from a collaboration and from a volunteer perspective. But I will be answering the evasive conversation in a future report.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Karen. I was also remiss in not asking directors if there are any clarifying questions of the speaker. I should have probably done that first, so my apologies before launching into response. Just checking, not seeing any. Okay, all right. With that, well, thank you, Linda, very much for sharing your thoughts. We really appreciate it. And that concludes item 3.2, which was a Hastings Park Arborist update. Our next item on the community meeting tonight is item 3.3, which is an update on the PNE master plan for the new amphitheater.
Thank you, Sarah. That will be me again. Next slide, please. So today I'm going to give you an overview of some of the build highlights, the timeline overview, a progress report on the timeline, the neighborhood impact initiatives that we've built into our planning forward, some artist renderings, and give you a quick overview of where we're at as it relates to the open call that was released on April 26th. Next slide, please. Some of the highlights for the PNE Amphitheater is that it is planned to be an iconic mass timber roof, which is the largest arch span in Canada. It'll offer flexible venue space and world-class concerts, arts and culture community performances. This is really going to increase the opportunity for community groups to come into a purpose-built and provide an offset to their costs by having everything built in. The venue is being designed to be acoustically and acoustic and sound containment with a rigid roof structure and devices. It is BC designed, BC engineered, and will feature BC wood. It's being built to Salmon Safe and LEED certifications, along with Rick Hansen Gold certification in accessibility. Next slide, please. The overview for the timeline is that through 2023, we'll be finalizing the design, working on building permitting, and starting to set up with a construction management company. In 2024 and 2025, we will be in construction with a grand opening anticipated and planned for in 2026. Next slide, please. A timeline progress update is the conceptual designs were completed in 2022. We just finalized our 90% schematic designs in April of 23. Our construction management team will be on board by summer of 2023. We're aiming for construction to start in 24, completion in 26, with the hopes and anticipation of a FIFA summer event as a potential venue. Next slide. As we know that during the time of construction that there will be some impacts, we're thinking ahead to say, what can we reduce? How can we reduce the impacts in the neighborhood? We have developed a plan where construction is accessed by a bridgewater, so reducing the traffic in through the main gates of the venue site. Advisory on construction noise and to abide by city bylaws. We will have, as part of our onboarding of new suppliers, we will have full advisories that overview it. Construction guidelines posted on construction site. That will be everything from codes of conduct while they're operating on our site to access to site and public safety. And then we'll also be including on our neighborhood website page an include of construction timelines and updates to potential impacts in the area. As it is a continued priority for the organization, we are continuing to plan around unwanted sound to ensure that we mitigate to the best of our abilities all sound coming from the venue. This includes a rigid roof structure, sound walls, sound panels, cedar hedges and trees, which are the #1 type of tree and foliage that absorb sound. We have built in a house sound system so that we have management of the system as well as the placement of the speakers. And we're working final inclusions to be confirmed on the construction plan. So we are continuing to add and work with our sound consultants as we go through the build site to maximize all best practices in the industry. Next slide, please. We're going to move into some of the artist renderings. So this is a holistic plan going from south to north of the venue, with the walk-up access point to the bottom left-hand corner is where is currently the festival plaza. And then when you walk up to the far right-hand corner, it goes right into Playland. Next slide, please. This is a view from the southeast corner of the venue overlooking the North Shore Mountains and the stage. Next slide, please. One of the things that was very important to the community groups was to ensure that we had a flexible grassed space so that if they were using the facility, they could have a smaller show at the front on the stage, while at the same time using the grass sanctuary space or the grass space at the back for their festival zone, their food activations, their vendors, and their other showcases. So we have built in that flexible space at the back of the venue. Next slide, please. This is a view from the stage overlooking Playland with the sound wall at the far back. Next slide, please. You will notice in that past picture is that the sound wall supports the curve of the actual roof. So where the roof goes up, so does the sound wall. Here's a view from the night looking out onto the North Shore Mountains from the back of the venue. Next slide, please. So on April 26th, we did do an open call announcement for a naming rights partner. So far, we've had over 25 prospective candidates of interest to date. We're doing prospective candidate orientation sessions where we're briefing them on the project and the opportunities. July through September, we'll be hosting discovery sessions and site inspections with prospective candidates. And October 26th, the open call closes, and we will then have the submissions in for the naming rights opportunity. Next slide, please. One of the things that is extremely important to the PNE that is not just straight the investment that comes with the partnership, but that there's strong organizational alignment on our values, the sustainability commitments of the organization, and a strong community focus. We also want to ensure that they align within our corporate partnership alignment and experience philosophy. So making sure they align in initiatives for developing strong, purposeful relationships to create impact with our partners, our guests, our site, and more importantly, our community. And then finally, the investment in terms to ensure that they're in with their investment as well as a lengthy term to support the overall investment. And with that, that's the end of this presentation before I move to the next one.
Thank you. Thanks, Karen, for the overview and the update. This is the opportunity for directors to ask any questions about the most recent update on the amphitheater project. So I see Maury. Let's go to you.
Yep. Thank you, Sarah. Hey, Karen, just assuming the timeline that you outlined is that we adhere to it and the development schedule continues, at what point do you start booking entertainment? You know, like how far in advance of actual completion do you start starting to fill the calendar? I'm just interested.
It's interesting that you say that because we would be starting doing holds the moment they come in with the tentative answer that it's upon completion. But the strong sales will be starting to do market development February of 20 through February of 25. And come February of 25 is when we'll start to be able to actually start firming up holds and managing the lineup. But there's a lot of conversations happening right now with a whole series of everything from the promoters to the agencies to also the arts and culture groups, where we're working with a series of different groups to determine what their needs are so that we can start to book in smaller residencies throughout the summer months to begin with.
Okay, good. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Maury. Any other clarification questions at this point before we move to our community speakers? Nope. Okay, I'm not seeing any. So we do have 2 registered speakers for this item this evening. And a reminder that you have 5 minutes to share your thoughts with the board. The first speaker is Maria Mussenden. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And you have 5 minutes when you're ready. Please begin. So we have, just checking that we have Maria on the line.
She is muted, so perhaps Maria, if you can hear us.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good evening to the Hastings Park PNE board and to PNE staff and all who are here. Yes, I'm just wanting to speak to the amphitheater report. I'm going to start off with what I would usually end up with. So at the December 1st, 2022 amphitheater board meeting, there was an amphitheater redevelopment report and project schedule, and it indicates that the contract, procurement includes council approval. And I was just wondering, will the public be able to speak at this? And will the PNE be giving local residents the heads up as to when this will occur? So we have an opportunity to speak at this meeting if possible. And also, I was wondering where the sound impact study to local communities is at. I believe the chair mentioned that there was one was going to take place, and I'm particularly interested in or concerned too as to what will happen to property values, especially with those people who were affected by the parking. How are they going to hold birthday parties? You know, it's just like there's going to be so many events, and it really concerns me about property values. You know, hard to sell a home, and I'd like really to hear sound bites. What is it going to sound like when these concerts are up and running? 10,000 capacity. And also, I want to note that it takes time for cedar trees to grow and hedges and all that. So I don't know, 50 years or something like that. So that, and I want also to bring the board's attention to the document that I submitted. The board has that in front of them. And I was wanting to bring the board's attention to the part where page 2. It speaks to that there was extensive community engagement. Despite this, I don't agree with this. There was actually very little local community engagement. There was a lot of engagement with stakeholders, but not very little with local. And also the studies, I want the board to note that there is no sound impact study to the local neighborhoods in the vicinity of the park. And I can't. Okay, sorry, I was just trying to move my book this time. And this is a concern to me. Like I have noted here on the document I sent to the board, is that you would never install a mine without doing an environmental impact study. So I believe that this should have happened before the amphitheater project was approved, and it really concerns me that this did not happen. And also too, I want to bring the board's attention that it really saddens me that the public has been excluded from attending in person. I feel that this is another erosion of our democratic process. This is one of the things that we were very concerned back in 2013 when the PNE was giving governance over Hastings Park, that things like this would happen. You know, the lack of notice, the lack of due process.
Sorry, Maria, 30 seconds.
The lack of transparency and accountability. And also too, I want to bring that, how am I going to attend the open house in the summer if it's at the fair? Do I need to pay? And that is it. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Maria, so much for sharing your thoughts and comments. I will affirm that I did say that sound management is a really important part of the design and sort of the planning in terms of, you know, use of best technologies and best practices for the amphitheater. And I'm sure that staff will take it away with respect to sound testing and other components. So we've definitely heard you on that, and that how sound is managed is a key part of the design and approach. So I do want to reflect that back. And also I'll see if staff want to provide any other comments with respect to, sorry, just 1 second, with respect specifically to your question around participating in the open house, or if that will be coming up later in community questions. So I just want to address, Karen, do you want to just respond to that first?
The open house, with respect to the neighbors, we will ensure that if they do want to come in for the purpose of the open house, that they do have access, whether it be through the access pass or through tickets. We will ensure that they do.
Okay, and
all of our neighbors do have access to free tickets that they can use to come in.
Okay, and is that information clearly and readily available for community members? Do people know how to access that? Will that be, is there?
The neighborhood letters for fair will go out in early July, if not the last week of June. so that there's plenty of time for them to redeem their tickets and also come into the fairgrounds.
Okay. And just because I want to stay, make sure that we're consistent with process throughout these items tonight, I just want to just check in with the board, see if there's any clarifying questions for the speaker. So everybody's got an equal opportunity. Okay, I'm not seeing some, so I think a lot of those comments were fulsome, and staff are hearing that and taking that away. Any other comments from staff in response to what was shared?
Sarah, maybe I can start with a couple of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Please go ahead, Shelley.
Yeah, Maria, just in speaking to accessibility to the board, we rotate between online video meetings and in-person meetings because some find it more easier to not physically be present. So it's definitely not a way to try and exclude people. In fact, it's a way to try and include a broader range of people who can't physically get to the site. And so, please don't interpret that as a way to have you not engaged. Everybody is here listening and openly hearing what it is that you are saying, but we do have to try a variety of formats. You have talked a little bit about traffic impact and parking. And of course, that is something that is a long-standing issue in the neighborhood, between parking in the neighborhood and things like that. And there has been a traffic study done, traffic flow done. And that's an issue that we will continue to work on to ensure that we are minimizing the number of cars that are coming into the local neighborhood. We continue to do things like bike valets and car share programs where people can drop off and then we have the cars picked up. We'll continue to, have places for Uber and Lyft and try and minimize the number of vehicles staying in the neighborhood. So please know that those types of things are also in our radar. And Karen, I'm not sure if there's a few other things that you wanted to speak to.
Thank you, Shelley. There is a question, Maria, at the end in regards to community engagement on some slides in a future slide. So I would like to postpone the response to that until I have the slide in front that details out both consultation and communication as it relates to the amphitheater. The sound impact study, there, to our knowledge and to our experience, having sound impact studies as it relates to standard construction processes is not a standard process. So a sound study has not been planned or commissioned. However, all of the feedback from the neighborhood, as well as the engagement of a world-class sound consultants team to ensure that we take every single best practice and best initiative for sound mitigation, has been incorporated into, and we will continue to evolve those best practices. And the best practices aren't just something that has been tried and worked, that they've been tested in both laboratories using our current environment, as well as in other venues, and then translated over to our build through simulation and so forth. So there has been work done to say, is the mitigation tactics you're putting in place, will they have impact? And all of the results are showing that they will. And we will continue to evolve the sound mitigation impacts and initiatives to reduce the impact to the neighborhood. Shelley answered the question in regards to the public board meeting. The access to the community corner for the one-on-one, we will ensure that that has a variety of formats, not only during the fair, community day, but we can also take a look at a couple weekends through the summer to add increased engagement so that you do not have to come out during an event. If you don't want to, we can add that into. And then the one question that I didn't have full understanding because it broke up at the time is you were asking about, would the public have the opportunity to speak at the procurement? Can you mention which procurement that was?
Yes, thanks for asking, Karen. It's there's at the December 1st, 2022 board meeting, there was a project schedule and it says contractor procurement include council approval. So it needs to go to council for approval. I'm just wondering if the public will be able to speak at that. And I just want to make, which I didn't clarify, my apologies. I was referring to an independent noise impact study. But thank you, Karen, for what you have said.
Okay, so in regards to the procurement, that would have been as it relates to the construction management, and that is not something that, to my understanding, that there would be a public consultation on as it relates to the selection of who would be the construction manager. That is not an approval of as it relates to the amphitheater and its redevelopment. That would be the approval of the candidate being selected to be the construction management company. And then with that, I believe we have answered the questions with the exception of the engagement, which I will reserve to the community questions, which I'm answering then.
Okay, thank you, Karen, and thank you again, Maria. We really appreciate you sharing your thoughts tonight.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Karen.
Thank you very much, Maria. We appreciate that. I'm going to move on to our next speaker, which second and final speaker for this item, which is Kathy Lau. And Kathy, you have 5 minutes when you're ready.
Before I start, Sarah, is my request to have the audiovisual for the document, the Hastings Park report up? Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I see it's coming up right now. So you should see that.
I'll start now. Okay. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to ask questions and comment on the amphitheater redevelopment update. My name is Kathy Lau. I am on the board of directors of the Hastings Park Conservancy. There are 192 members in the society. Our mission is to work for public access, natural habitat, enhanced green space, and sustainability of Hastings Park for the enjoyment of all. I have lived in this neighborhood for 40 years, and I love this neighborhood. My 5-minute talk is to shed light on the amphitheater redevelopment. I'd like to refresh your memory on the amphitheater renewal by focusing on information from the Hastings Park PNE Master Plan Program Report dated June 9th, 2021. Page 7, please. Enhance the environment and park space. Increase green space at Hastings Park from 27 to 76 acres, daylighting historic Hastings Creek down to Burrard Inlet will establish a public park space with natural beauty in an urban setting. Okay, page 8, please. Future work, daylighting Hastings Creek through the site to connect the sanctuary and Burrard Inlet. Page 9 and 10, heart of the park. We see the amphitheater renewal, and number 2 is daylighting Creek. Technical studies, detailed design, and construction of the stream will follow the amphitheater renewal, and it's subject to funding availability. Page 12, please. Environmental. Protect and enhance Vancouver's climate, ecology, natural resources, and connect to the city's remarkable natural setting for future generations. Improve sustainability through green infrastructure and renewable energy. Creation of one water strategy for the amphitheater, Hastings Creek, Festival Plaza that will positively contribute to the stewardship of the land and water. Page 22. Creek lighting is once again mentioned. The heading, Heart of the Park, mentions the daylighted creek. Page 27. However, when it comes to funding, there's no money budgeted for the daylighting Hastings Creek. Project cost estimate, amphitheater 64 million, infrastructure implementation 4.6 million. On page 28, there is $300,000 for the preliminary daylight creek design, not much compared to the 68 million for the amphitheater. Page 29. Budget allocation. There's no mention of money for daylighting. This goes back to page 10, where the daylighting the Hastings Creek is subject to funding availability. Planning for the water system for Hastings Creek cannot continue to be an afterthought. It needs to be brought to the front of the agenda, which leads to my two questions. Knowing the importance of daylighting Hastings Creek, which is mentioned throughout the PNE Master Plan report, and work is to proceed after the building of the amphitheater, can you shed some light on how the planning and funding for daylighting Hastings Creek can happen without a planned budget? My second question is, Hastings Park Conservancy is extremely interested in the progress of the planning, funding, timing of the daylighting Hastings Creek. Beyond general updates, how can Hastings Park Conservancy receive up-to-date information and reports on the planning and work? Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Kathy, for your comments, and very clear and very straightforward, and obviously really helpful feedback for us to hear with respect to the natural features of the park. I'm just going to look and see if there's any clarifying questions from directors. There may not be, because you were very explicit and very comprehensive in your comments. I'm not seeing any. Would staff like to provide any initial response at this point, or is this something that you would want to take away?
Shelley, did you want to say something first?
I was just going to point out that the engineering department has spent about 18 months doing the One Water strategy planning. And so they've been actively engaged in planning for the stream. And as part of the sub-plan area for the amphitheater work that's being done, there's been a significant amount of planning. And again, this is high-level planning because it's just at the planning stages, but planning for how those elements of underground infrastructure, the daylighted stream, and the amphitheater all coexist. And so there has literally been, months of work done on that front as well. I do know that the Vancouver Park Board is now close to or ready to issue an RFP to do the $300,000 in study that you referenced that the budget was set aside for. There needed to be some pre-planning before they could get to a spot to issue the RFP to get that planning done. And so I understand that they'll be looking to issue that RFP in the summertime. And so it's just, there's just obviously a lot of planning that needs to go into making this happen appropriately. And that's a level of detail that I can share with you at this point. Karen, if there's anything that you want to add, and the rest we can take away and try and get you some answers for.
So Kathy, thank you very much. Shelley, thank you for that context. We do, I hate to be a broken record, but we do have a slide coming up as it relates to, it was a community question that did come through. So I'll go through it in full detail coming up. As Shelley mentioned, it is a project that is being spearheaded by the Parks Board and the City of Vancouver Engineering Department. I have had multiple conversations with them over the last 30 days since our last open house, and they have agreed to come to the November 1st open house to have a dialogue and conversation with our neighborhood to give a status update as to where we're at. Because up until now, as Shelley has mentioned, it's been a lot of the organizational planning that has went into the daylighted stream. The needs of the daylighted stream are being taken into effect. That city engineering team is part of the amphitheater plan vetting process to ensure that the needs of the daylighted stream are being captured into our forward planning for the amphitheater. And the best opportunity that we'll have is at the November 1st meeting is having that team come out and present the overall plans to how the project's going to move forward, and can give some more transparency around how the funding will be allocated, when it'll be allocated, and the overall project timeline for this very important project to the master plan.
Okay. That seems like a good segue to provide additional detail to Kathy and some of the other speakers that we've heard. So thank you, Kathy, for taking the time and sharing your comments and the preparation that went into that. I'm going to suggest that we move on to the community questions portion now, because I think that will provide additional detail for people. And that is the final item on our agenda, item 3.4 tonight.
Okay, great, thank you. Sal, can you move to the next slide, please? So the first question that we were asked that came through the community question is, why did the PNE staff use the forum for the May 16th open house when clearly staff were unaware of the existing sound issues with or without the use of the microphone, and when staff had 6 months to organize this open house? So next slide, please. So in regards to the open house was scheduled for the forum for 2 reasons. The first one is the anticipated numbers based on registration, because we do have registration in advance, far exceeded what the attendance for the Hastings room could be from a registration perspective. However, we did have an unusually low turnout with less than 40 people attending the actual open house, with over 200 people registered to come. With those anticipated numbers, had they shown up, we would have used the regular sound system, and you would not have experienced the sound system impacts of it, the echoing, because the more people are in the room, the less the sound will echo. The annual clients, and then the second reason is in the Hastings room and in the Pacific room, there were annual clients. These weren't clients that were just in a one-off. They come every year specific to, and this particular one was a rehearsal for a theater company in the Hastings room at that time. I do want to assure the neighbors that for the November 1st open house, we have reserved the Hastings room, but however, we will need to limit the number of, as that was the preferred location by the neighborhood, we will have to limit the number of people that attend to ensure that capacities do get managed for that particular venue. And with that, I can move on to the next question. Can you provide an update to the sanctuary since the December public board meeting, and an update on the timeline financing progress of the daylighted stream? Next slide, please. So this is an answer to some of your questions, Linda, in regards to the strategy and around the tree removal. So just to recap, from a tree removal, we did remove 37 trees from the sanctuary, 22 of which were Western red cedars. We had 5 Western red cedars removed from Lot 9B on the west side, and we also had 1 maple on the pathway that goes from Renfrew and Hastings Gate up past the forum into the parking lot that's behind the forum removed. The summary of the trees damaged from the February snowstorm: there was 2 trees on the edge of Momiji Gardens and Hastings Street, which fell due to the weight of snow. 1 was a false cypress and 1 was a sequoia. In addition, there was a maple in Momiji Gardens and a fig tree by the Prize Home lot that was damaged with significant loss of limbs. However, we have been able to maintain and care for those trees to ensure a long life ahead of them. All fallen trees have been naturalized to the sanctuary where appropriate. Next slide, please. As it relates to the replacement strategy, I sat down with the gardening team and went through a full detail of what their approach will be, as we have not immediately replaced each of the trees at this time. The PNE is working with the City of Vancouver arborist, along with our arborist, in developing a replacement strategy for all trees that have been removed within the following considerations. We are currently underway in developing a full inventory of trees on the site with supporting maintenance plans for those trees. We're identifying trees with longer lifespans to suit our changing climates. So, for example, we've seen a significant decrease in the lifespan of Western red cedars. So we're taking a look at what is a more appropriate tree to replace, so that they're not dying as it results to our new climates. The location of replanting may change based on the suitability of the trees in the selection. We may not want to plant large trees along Hastings areas where there's power lines, as it is too risky, as you saw in February when one fell into one of the power lines. Where trees are not being replaced with similar size trees, we're working with designing more suitable green spaces, including flower beds, hedges, shrubs in those locations. One of the most important things is anytime we do a build, whether it be a replacement for the trees or whether it be a ride that we're implementing or a new build on the site, we do put in an extensive portion of the budget to ensure that we're greening each of those spaces to continue to build the ecosystem on the site. Next slide, please. There were some questions around the invasive species from Linda. So recently in the sanctuary, we have pretty much completed and are in the progress of finalizing the eradication of the blackberry bushes on the eastern side of the sanctuary. In the coming 4 weeks, the team is working on the removal of the bamboo invasive on the eastern side of the sanctuary. In Italian Gardens, there's 2 flower beds that flank the west side and the east side of the fountain. On the west side, we've removed the invasive species, and we're currently working on identifying there's a standing water issue in that area. So we're looking to identify and fix that standing water issue before we replant, but it will be replanted. And on the east side of the fountain, we have removed the invasive species, and we've planted it and replaced it with a pollinator grass as we continue to redesign what the greening will look like in and around the flower bed to match the west side. Next slide, please. There has been some questions in regards to the daylighted stream, and while this might be some repeat, I did want to reiterate that the daylighted stream project is being managed by the City of Vancouver and the Vancouver Parks Board and supported by the PNE in all of our planning. In 2023, the focus is on developing the flow and design study for the daylighted stream, and that the needs are being planned within the scope of the amphitheater to ensure both the redevelopment projects are in alignment. So for example, the placement of the underground pipes and all of the stuff that are there to support the stream are taking it into consideration as we're planning the current amphitheater build plans. On November 1st, at the open house, the daylighted stream will be a key topic based on the request from the community, and we will be having a City of Vancouver representative there to do the presentation on the status of the project, the timing of the project, and then they'll overview the questions in and around the funding. The financing for the project will fall within the City of Vancouver capital planning allotments once the final plans are done for the daylighted stream. Next slide, please. The third question is, why didn't the PNE have an extensive engagement before the new amphitheater redevelopment was taken to council for the approval of June of 2021? And I think that there's 2 different words that we need. There's 2 different approaches to this. There's amphitheater consultation and there's amphitheater communication. And I want to speak to both of those. The amphitheater consultation and engagement on what was going to happen and how it was going to happen happened when the master plan itself was developed and presented back in 2010, and it was approved by City Council. And since that time, the PNE, in conjunction with our City of Vancouver partners, have been working on all of the underground infrastructure planning and all of the other planning to support the overall master plan. And now is when you're seeing the redevelopment of the previously approved and consulted projects come to life. From a communication perspective, we've continued to expand on our communication and will continue to do so through our open houses, our community newsletters, and so forth. But such areas that we have communicated the status of projects and engaged with the public for their opinions and thoughts on the plans have been at the public board meetings, updates through 2018 through 2022, and including today's open public board meeting. We've done regular updates to the PNE Community Advisory Group, the neighborhood focus groups between 2017 and 2022, vetted ideas, thoughts, and processes in with both of those groups. We've done interviews with 30 local arts and culture groups. We've done 3 public information sessions held in since February of 2020. There was a question and a comment that that there has not been done many. That was because there was no planning on the amphitheater until 2022 that would have an informational update. So we are communicating as the information is developed and as the information is prepared and ready to go to be communicated out to the public. Communication about the amphitheater in the community newsletters in 2020, 2021, 2022, and we will continue to provide regular updates in all community newsletters through 2023. We did a Talk Vancouver survey in 2020 with over 8,000 responses. We did a PNE open house on the amphitheater in November 2022. And from that, all of the sound feedback, all of the traffic congestion feedback, all of that feedback has been built into our planning and our future forward operational setting for that venue. We did our open house on May 16th, 2023, where we provided a timeline, a full detailed update of where we were at to date. and Reverie Architects, who are responsible for the community engagement as it relates to the Indigenous consultation and some of the build features, have regularly completed their community engagement through the process of design. I hope that helps overview the work that has been done, when consultation takes place, and when the communication will happen. And we will continue to provide many opportunities to engage with PNE leaders and stakeholders to ensure that your thoughts and feedback in relation to the venue and redevelopment on the site will be continued to be built into our future planning. I believe that might be the last question.
Okay, thank you, Karen. That was a really comprehensive update to a lot of the questions. And so hopefully that provides some good information back to the speakers. And again, I want to thank all of our speakers tonight for weighing in and providing their input on the items, because it really does shape a lot of the work that is happening. And those are really important considerations for the board and for the PNE. So that concludes our formal items tonight. Our next board meeting with the public realm component is happening on December 7th, 2023. For anybody that would like to mark their calendars. And with that, I am going to ask for a motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor? Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thanks to staff for the first updates. And thank you to the speakers as well for your participation. We appreciate it.
The minutes.
I'm sorry?
The minutes.
Yeah,
The
they'll
minutes
get,
they will be
get
posted
posted.
online after the meeting. They get approved first and then they get posted online.
What's the capacity of the Hastings room?
depends on the configuration.
And I'm sure if there are any other questions for staff, because I do want to respect sort of everybody's time and make sure everybody's treated equally. So I'm sure that any other additional questions I would encourage can be emailed in, and I'm sure staff would be happy to respond. Okay. Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
everybody.
Have a good evening. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for joining. Appreciate it.